and welcome back to Let Glory Shine. I'm your host, Martha Glory Kartaoui, and I'm so happy to be here. And I have another fantastic guest for you today. And we met under unusual circumstances. Well, kind of usual at first, and then unusual when we actually got to spend some one-on-one time together. So I will introduce you to Sheli Dodson. She is part of the organization Unleash You Now that I am part of as well. And we'd kind of run in the same circle for the last year or so. But then when we met up in Nashville, Tennessee this year for MML 25, where I spoke, we connected afterwards on a much deeper level. And then she came to North Carolina and spent 2 weeks with me. So let's welcome Sheli Dodson. Hello,
Hey,
friend. Good
hey,
to
I know what
see
took us
you.
so long to finally connect. That was crazy. It took too
Yeah.
long.
Well, when it's a community the size of ours, it's,
True.
there's lots of people and
Yep, yep,
everybody's
yep,
busy and everybody's got lives. And
yep,
so,
yep.
and you and I both talk about this extensively. Divine timing is always the right time.
Yeah.
And so God obviously had a purpose of when we finally did get to have a really in-depth and honest and vulnerable conversation in March that led to you coming to stay with me for 2 weeks in April. And so I can't wait for Sheli to explain to you her gifts and her mission and purpose right now, because it is not ordinary, but it's fantastical. So I'm really excited to let her kind of explain to you what she does.
It's funny, right? When I think about my career path, and then people back in the day, back when I was in corporate world, people would say, "What do you do?" And I would tell them, and they always got this look on their face, like, "Really?" And then they always inevitably said something like, "But you're so nice." And I say that because for those who don't know my history, corporate banking, I spent a lot of time doing consumer collections, right? Like, hey, you owe money, you might get a phone call from me. But I worked for a credit union, which is member owned. And so the focus was very, very heavily on, yes, we want to get repaid, but also like, what can we do to help our membership get back on track? I have a kind of a running dialogue. I call it the 6 Ds, right? People run into hardship, and not just financial, but life hardship as a result of several things. I call it the Ds. Death, right? Divorce, which could also be a breakup at the ending of a relationship, disaster, any sort of disaster, which could be anything from a car accident to a natural disaster. I mean, look at California. Death, divorce, disease, illness, things like that. Dumbness, right? Things people make dumb decisions. We all do it. There's no escaping it. And then downsizing. So one way or another, it always wreaks havoc financially, mentally, emotionally. And so I spent a long time in that 8 years on the consumer side. Then I moved over to the business side of house and business banking, and did everything from lending to, again, what I'm really strong in the wheelhouse was risk mitigation and management, which included some commercial collections. And when people found out I did collections, like collecting past due accounts for a living, people would always be like, but you're so nice. Simultaneously, I was running a bed and breakfast out of my home for over a decade. So I had people coming and staying with me long term, oftentimes 4 to 6 weeks at a time. And so they were just blown away by this person they saw at home. And then they just envisioned that when I left and went to the office, I must put on my witch shoes and my witch hat and my long pointy nose and just get mean. And it's really, I think, eye-opening to explain to people that you actually get more results when you treat people with kindness and grace, and when you help them get to the root of what the real issues are, so that you can help them come up with a plan to resolve it. So I get offended when people talk about collection agents are mean jerks and this, that, and the other. And there's jerks in every field. I don't discount that. But what I really loved about my job, which sounds weird when you're in collections, is I got to hear people and hear their stories and what their struggle was. And then when you really understand what's going on behind the scenes, you have the ability to make decisions and take action that can really help them step up. Short-term problem, long-term problem. I found that I was a really good fixer, helping people get back on track. And it's not me solving their problems, it's helping them look at new avenues to pursue that will get them back on track. So that's what
Which
led me into my current work.
Yeah, which really what you're doing is you're empowering them to
Right.
tap into their own resources and to flex their own tool belts and their own muscles to help
Yep.
themselves, right?
Yep.
But
Yep.
sometimes it takes an outside force to be able to help them to navigate, to empower them, because sometimes we just get so lost in our yuck that it's hard to see the light, right? And when I heard you the first time that you mentioned to me the 6 Ds, I was like, that's so true, because most trauma can be
Yep.
wrapped up in those 6 Ds.
Yeah.
So it's actually arguable that you really met people at their lowest. You met people in your corporate job for all of those years when they're going through some pretty heavy, dark, times, and maybe, like I said, at their lowest. And
Yeah.
so you being able to meet them in that space of empathy, compassion, love, generosity of spirit, right? Like that's beautiful. And that says something about more about your character and the things that you've learned along this journey
Yeah.
than it does about the job, right? So, because we all have jobs in our life, and and that's why I would say that debt collectors have a bad rap, because not all debt collectors look like Sheli Dodson. They just don't.
Right.
I've
Right.
dealt with my share when I was married and we were highly in debt, and I dealt with a lot of people, and they were not kind like you.
Right. Right.
So, but like you said, there's always bad apples in every profession. So it's not just bill collectors or debt collectors. So,
No,
um,
and I had a mentor, actually my a former boss of mine, Paul, when I first got into that. And I remember in my interview for the job, he said to me, I really want you to remember that you're dealing with less than 1/2 of 1% of our membership population, and that they are our members and they do matter to us. And to remember that. Because sometimes when you're in the yuck, and you see this if you're so sometimes like emergency medicine, the medical field, law enforcement, the court system, things like that, when you see a lot of negative on a constant basis, it's really easy to start to see the world through that lens,
yes, yes.
and to treat people accordingly. And
Well, and you become numb, right?
right, right,
If you
right,
allow yourself, you become numb to humanity at large, because you want to put everybody in the same pickle jar, and that's unfair, right? And
mhm.
so being able to maintain your own humanity, but also to be able to look at others and to offer that and to hold that space, that's that's powerful. That's powerful. Which leads us into how you got into what you're doing.
What I'm doing now, isn't it interesting? Yeah, so for those who don't know, I'm a live-in life coach. I take life coaching to the next level, and I've met some amazing coaches, life coaches. I work with coaches myself, and the reality is there's a lot of people who want to help you through the storm. There really are. And my live-in life coaching is designed to go next level, because sometimes you need a little bit more than a 1 hour pep talk or an intermittent text through the day. Sometimes you really need someone to step into the yuck, as you put it, with you and help you walk through that path. And I found in my corporate job and even in my personal life with friends, we all have friends that are going through stuff, right? Everybody's going through something, little or big. It's never always sunny sailing. And there's so much effort that we make as a society to put up the facade, right? Facebook is either drama, drama, drama negative, or it's like, look at my perfect life. And people spend a lot of time working hard to maintain this
Yeah.
image and this persona that things are okay.
Yeah.
And when I was
The
in the corporate
Instagram
world,
life.
oh, I saw that a lot, especially when I was in the commercial side of it, because people are not just, it's not just a job where they're struggling to pay their bills, but it's a business or a company that they're running where they are struggling and they
Right.
don't know if they're going to be able to make payroll, and they might be behind on the business loan. Well, they are. If I'm calling them, they are behind on the business loan. There's so much more to it than that. And yet they have to maintain the image, right? If people know, there's a perception, if people know you're struggling, I don't want to work with that person. They've got too much going on. And so people sometimes they dig themselves a deeper hole trying to maintain an image. And what I found with that work and what helped lead me into this work is that when you can really step into the yuck with someone and be like, okay, let's get in the trenches and figure this out together, man, it's a game changer. Martha, it is a game changer when you're like, well, let me help you figure this out. We're going to do this together. You're not by yourself. I'm not just going to give you some suggestions or some advice or give you a trait saying, I'm going to step into the yuck with you. And that has been a game changer for clients,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because it's easy
Um,
to talk about, I think this is my problem, and then maybe get some guidance, but that maybe that's not the real issue. And when someone's in it with you and sees how you're living and what you're doing and what your habits are, they can drill down to, here's what I actually noticed. What if we
right.
change this up? How will that ripple effect to the other areas you're struggling in?
Yeah. The first time that you sat down and explained to me this vision and what you do and what you're able to do and create for clients, I just sat there like, what? Like I'd never heard of this concept. But
Mm.
what really spoke to me was I referenced this to you that day that we were talking about it. It felt a little bit like the old school, the nanny, the super nanny, how
Yes.
she shows up in this
Mhm.
completely disarray, dysfunctional, like chaotic home where the kids, are spitting at their parents and are just horrible, and the parents are mad at each other, and they're at each other's necks all the time, and they're yelling and screaming, and
Yeah.
the nanny's just standing back in the corner just kind of watching
Taking it all in.
it all in. And then on like the second or third day, she like steps in and says, "This is what I've observed."
Yes.
And I have looked at and watched your family function. And are you ready to step in and really change the way that this family's operating? Or do you want to continue to live in this chaos? Right.
Right.
And so that's what I imagined you like, just taking the first couple of days when you enter somebody's home, because they have to trust you to bring you
100%. Oh
into
my
their
gosh.
space.
Yeah. To
Right.
really look behind the curtain, right? To really look behind the curtain. Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
what does that look like when you go into somebody, they're paying you, but also they're welcoming you into their chaos, their yuck, their all the things, right? And know that you're not going to judge them, that you're there
Right.
to help, you're there to empower you. So what does it look like when you begin that process with a new client?
It's always funny, like, what do I say? Like, what do I tell people about you? And I'm like, you tell them your friend came to visit, right? Because the reality is it's a relationship, right? It's not just a client coach relationship, it's a friendship. When I leave, assuming all goes well, and it has so far, we're going to be friends. We're going to stay in touch. We're going to think about each other. We're going to text randomly throughout the day. And it's not out of obligation, it's out of friendship. So you just tell people, hey, your friend showed up. Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, we all have friends. I hope I'm fortunate enough, and I'm sure many of us are, to have a friend that you can pick up and call, right? I have friends I can pick up the phone and be like, here's what's happening. And they will literally jump on a plane. When I hit a deer a few weeks ago, I called my friend from Side Road crying. I was like, I can't take one more thing. And she literally was like, she tracks me on GPS because I spend so much time, as you know, on the road to like see where I was trying to figure out how to get there, how much the drive time was from where she is in Washington to where I was. Like, I have friends that do that for me. And we have friends that can step into that with you and help you walk through it. And that's kind of what the experience is. Um, but sometimes our friends, oh God, they love us, but they just sometimes can't say the hard things, don't do the hard things, won't have the conversations. In fact, as I'm doing this work, I integrate into the life, right? You maintain your job, you maintain your life, you maintain your structure, because really I want to make changes in your real world environment. And so I get to meet the friends and chat with them casually and kind of hear their perspective sometimes. And they'll say a lot of the things that to me that they don't have the comfort or confidence or their sensitivity. They want to be sensitive to their friends' feelings. So I get to be that person. I get to be the part cheerleader, a part drill sergeant is what I say. It's very much I've had people reference like you're like the nanny for grown-ups, or Gillian Anderson's Jillian, whatever her name was on The Biggest Loser. People are like, oh, you like follow them around and slap the food out of their hand. Not quite, but it's the same idea. So it's very much I do get in. I watch, participate in meals and kind of go where you go and do what you do and just kind of hang out. And I'm like the friendly newcomer in the group, just taking it all in. And then it's just some gentle conversations, right? Some gentle conversations to ease in. Before I go and do work with anybody, we've had kind of an extensive settling in. This is what it looks like. What do you really want to get out of this? How deep is your commitment level? Because it needs to be deep, right? I'm with you 24/7. We're not working together 24/7, but I'm with you, watching you kind of step through your life. So I am gonna be like, hey, let's talk about this for a real quick second. Or and sometimes it's a quick redirect, and sometimes it's a file that away. Let's have a conversation later when we're back at the house or in a private spot. Just a lot of gentle nudging, right? It's the friend who like makes that gentle kick under the table when you need to stop talking about that subject or to redirect your thinking. It's I don't know. I mean, it's like having I don't want to say best friend, but having a really good friend that you're safe with that can be like, okay, we're gonna have a real hard talk. Here's a box of Kleenex, you might need it. Or, put on the big girl panties. This is going to get rough, but I know you're capable of X, Y, and Z.
Thank you for watching Prospera TV Network. We hope you're enjoying the show. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
it's very, there's a level of structure to it, but it's also everybody's at a different spot in their life. Everybody has a different kind of focus and challenge. And even, when you move from client to client and you see related issues, how they're approaching it might be different. Their life experience that drives their behavior might be different. And so it's always very personal. Every step of it is very, very personal to where they are and what they need and where they want to be.
Right, right. And so how do you find your ideal clients? Because this is a very niche market.
Oh, it is so
So
neat.
who
So neat.
and who is your ideal client? Because they may be watching this show right now and be like, that lady does what?
She does
That
what?
sounds
Like,
incredible. I need her. So tell us what your ideal client looks like and how you find them.
so I've got kind of two groups here. One of them is just the professional executive female, who is generally from the outside looking in, crushing it, right? She's on fire at work and she might have the vibrant social life and social circle, but at the end of the day, she gets home and she is wiped, right? She's wiped from trying to pretend that everything is okay. Generally, she has, like I said, a social circle, but she could not pick up the phone and call them at 2 o'clock in the morning in a crisis. She would worry about what they would say behind her back. Um, she often feels isolated and alone, very, very overwhelmed, and this intense pressure to maintain appearances. A lot of times when I get into her life and I see what's happening on the surface, everything looks good, but kind of once you get past the living room area and you start to see into the rest of life, you see a lot of clutter, a lot of disarray, a lot of holding on to old things because there's some sort of emotional attachment that hasn't been
Mhm.
addressed.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It feels like coaching, right? It feels like the process of
very much.
when like when I'm doing my coaching with my trauma clients,
Mhm.
there's this process that we have to go through, right? Like we have to get past the mask.
Yes.
We have to help them feel safe enough and trust us enough to take off the mask.
Yes.
And then you realize that there's so many coping mechanisms that they have adopted, right? And I
Oh,
know
yeah.
this because I went through so many years of putting on the fake mask and just pushing through with this fake positivity
Yep.
and creating all of these coping mechanisms to keep everybody at bay. Don't get too
Yep.
close to my pain.
Yeah.
Don't get
Don't
too
see.
close to my yuck. Don't
Yep.
get too close, right? Like, so you create all of these walls and
Yep.
barriers in order to keep people out. But I was highly successful. I was killing it. But I was a complete devastated mess every time I would
Misery.
go home, right? Because
Misery. Yep.
when I could take the mask off, I would fall apart. But you can play a part for a
Yep.
certain number of hours a day. And that's something that struck me when you were talking is like so many of us
Oh,
for
yeah.
so many hours a day play the part and
Right.
aren't truly genuinely have the ability to be who we're meant to be. And that makes me sad after all the work that I've done in order to be able to stand in my power,
Yep.
to be able to share my my mission and my vision. And I see the same thing for you is like you recognize it because you've been through the yuck,
Oh,
because
yeah.
you've done
Right.
the work to start moving forward so that you have the tools to be able to help other people, right?
What I think is interesting is because, as you know, I spent a lot of time on the road. I spent a lot of time on the road traveling because I ran a bed and breakfast for so long. I have friends and I have family scattered kind of across the country and around the world, which is pretty amazing. I've been able to travel to some pretty fantastic places. And so as I'm traveling, I'll run into friends from, college, high school, wherever, just from life and catch up with them and sit down. And, sometimes it's an hourish lunch or things like that. But if I end up staying and visiting with a friend for even more than just a few days, within the first 24 to 48 hours, right? Within the first 24 to 48 hours, the appearances come down pretty quick. And then we just start talking about the real stuff, right? And it usually starts with someone talking about how wonderful and amazing my life must be with all the travel you get to do and this and da da da. Da. And it is pretty amazing. There's a lot of great stuff to it, but there's also some not great stuff, right? It's not always perfect. It's not um, the Facebook, whatever that you always see. And so if I share a little bit, well, this is great and I do enjoy this, but this is where I struggle, then it's like the minute you share a little struggle with someone, they're like, oh, okay, her life isn't perfect, her world isn't perfect. I don't have to maintain this appearance. You get that phrase is reciprocal self-disclosure, right? You share a little bit with me and I'll share a little bit with you.
Well, you
And
give permission, right?
right,
It's the
right.
giving permission for them to be real, authentic,
Sure.
honest, and
100%.
that's when, yeah, that
Things
reciprocal,
come down.
exactly.
Yeah, and it's really funny because even in those short conversations, even if I'm only with somebody for just a few days visiting, just a friend, it's amazing what you can accomplish when you get to share your heart and your struggle and somebody can listen to you. And I don't even pretend to have all the answers or all the advice, but sometimes a new perspective, sometimes just a listening ear to help you shed that weight you've been carrying can really be transformative. And I'm always happy to help however I can, right? What can I do while I'm here to make your world a little bit better place? So at the end of the day, when you come home, you're happy Shelly's here. I'm happy to walk through the door and see like, hey, Shelly, it's good to see you.
Yeah.
Um, just to try to create a space that people want to come home to.
Yeah.
And a lot of what I do is helping people redesign their life, including their home environment, to be something that they always want to walk into. People who constantly have to vacation or, oh, we're on our second honeymoon, things like that. I'm like, on some levels that sounds great, but on other levels, I'm always thinking, well, what are you running away from? What are you
Yeah.
running away from
Yeah.
in life that you have to take a vacation to escape from your life?
Right.
Vacation's great, I'm all for it, but sometimes you can hear it in the tone of voice,
Yeah.
having to capture every wonderful moment because it's all they have to cling to when they get back
Yeah.
to the real world.
So
That's when
true.
you know
So
things might
true.
need to change.
Yeah. And that could be a much longer conversation, right? When your home is not your sanctuary, when it
Yes. Oh my
causes
gosh.
you stress, when it's, you're hoarding or you're cluttered or
Yep.
like that all comes from a mind that's a mind issue. That's a
Right.
heart issue, right? When your home is not your sanctuary, like that causes added stress, that causes added anxiety. And that's why you have to leave it in order to relax, right?
Right.
I shared with you while you were in my home, like my home is my sanctuary.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
I loved it there.
yeah, I travel a lot as well, but my home is my safe place. I keep it clean. I'm organized. It's my peace, right?
Yeah.
But I worked really hard to get to this place. And after my divorce, I didn't know what it was going to be like to live alone because I'd
Right.
never lived alone in my entire life. And so I was like, well, what am I going to do with all this space? But you learn how to love you and you learn
Yes.
how to love
Yes. Oh my
spending
gosh.
time with you, right? And that is what I find so interesting is that oftentimes when you step into situations like this, you have to teach them how to look at themselves,
Oh yeah.
how to honor and love themselves first before they can get rid of the clutter, before they can organize, before they can filter through, before they can stop hoarding, whatever it is, because it's an internal issue
It is
that they're
100%.
that they're struggling with versus an exterior thing, right? You can clean the clutter,
Yep.
but if
Yep.
you don't work on internal, if you don't address the real issue, the heart issue, the mind
6 months
issue,
later.
it's gonna happen all over again, and they're gonna call you in 6 months and say you need to come back.
Right. It's really interesting. I had a conversation with someone once about that exact thing. And I said, as long as I have known you, because it's someone I'd known for years, as long as I've known you, you have always been a tremendously hard worker. I see you, you pour 110% into your job. You're committed, like people can count on you. And they were at a massive transition in their life. And I said, I just have to ask you, um, why is it that you'll work so hard for somebody else, but you aren't willing to work hard to make the changes in your own
Mm.
life for yourself? And it was just like there was this moment. It was a male client, and he was just like, I don't I don't know. I've never looked at it that way. When I talked about like, what does your future look like? What do you see? And he had said, I just am trying to make it through the days.
Yeah.
Right. And the good news is it recognized like something has got to change, something has got to shift in my life. But sometimes to ask those really hard questions to point out the contrast between this is what your work life looks like, and this is what your home life looks like. You take care of your job, your desk is clear, you're firing off the reports, everything's done. They know they can count on you. But when it comes to your home life, your health, your home environment, your home relationships, they take a back seat. And
Yeah.
it's almost like people need to recognize that they are not worthy. They are not finding themselves worthy enough to do the work for themselves, but they do it for the job.
Yeah. Or
Um,
other people,
yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
always say if your reason for healing is for someone else, it's never going to last, and
Right.
you're never going to reap the benefits of it truly
Yeah.
if you're doing it for someone else. If you're saying like, I'm doing it to save my marriage, or I'm doing it for my kids,
Right.
or what, no, it
Right.
has to, you have to
It has to
want,
be for you.
has to be for you.
Right.
And that's hard, because as a culture, we don't talk about this. We don't talk about
Yeah.
the necessity of self-awareness. We don't talk about the necessity of self-love, or right, like we just don't, as a culture, we don't talk about that, because that's ego, or that they
Right.
name it something
Selfish.
else, or selfish, or right, all of those things.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the truth is in order to be the best, and the best version of ourselves, we have to take care of us first.
Yeah.
We can't
You do.
truly have and take care of others if we're not taking care of ourselves, if we're
Mm.
not pouring that into ourselves, or we're always going to be giving from an empty cup. And that's why
Yes.
we feel drained,
Yes.
exhausted, not
Yeah.
good enough, not measured up. That's why, is
Right.
because we're giving from an empty cup
Right.
instead
And
of
your
the over.
validation, right?
Yes.
Looking for validation from sources outside.
Yes.
Right.
And so it's never going to last, never going to last.
Yeah.
Sheli, this fascinates me, and I could talk to you for another whole episode or 3. But I just want to thank you so much for being
Yeah.
on Let
Of
Glory
course.
Shine. And before I let you go, I just have
Yes.
one question
Okay.
that I ask of all of my guests. And
Yes.
that is, what does it mean for Sheli to let her glory shine?
Oh, for Shelley, let her glory shine. It's to be my irrepressible self.
What does
Be
that
able,
mean?
you know
I
what?
love that.
And it seems like such an easy thing, but I think it's an area where people struggle, but to show up as you, right? What you see is what you get. You don't have to worry about me giving you the half truth or whatever. You're going to get like all of Shelley, 110%. Because my biggest gift, I say sometimes, is I try to love and lead with my heart.
Yeah.
And if I can pour that into everything that I do, it is not like a cup of sugar that runs out. It kind of just replenishes itself, right? There's just keep loving on people and showing them that they matter.
Yeah.
That's
And
it.
if people are interested in your services, how can they find you?
How can they find me? So the website for my business is Desiderata Consulting. And I don't know, is there a way to drop that in show notes or how
Yeah.
we could put that out there?
Yeah.
But yeah,
We'll put it in the show
Desiderata
notes.
Consulting is how they can find me.
Excellent. We'll put that in the show notes for sure. Thank you so much for being my
Yeah.
guest. It's so
Good to
great to
connect
see your
again.
beautiful shining face once
Yeah.
again.
Yes.
And thank you so much for joining us today for Let Glory Shine. I will be back same time, same station next Thursday at 7 p.m. And
Yay.
thank you. And I hope y'all have a great week. Let glory shine.
Let glory shine. From the ashes I rise. Every scar a story, every tear baptized. This is my freedom, this is my climb. Let glory shine, it's the power inside. This is your prosperity era, where dreams align with grace, abundance flows like rivers. You've stepped into your place. Rise, reign, and remember, you were born to shine. Welcome to your moment, Prospera, it's time.
We hope you enjoyed today's show on Prospera TV Network. Make it a point to visit us on YouTube and catch all your favorite shows anytime you want. Interested in hosting a show of your own? Or advertising your business on our network? Contact Elena Rodriguez.